Welcome back, episode 3.
We made it, baby.
We made it. It's exciting to be here again tonight. Eamon and I've had a great time delivering these topics, delivering a little bit of news, what we're marinating on, what's hitting us close. It's really cool to be able to share it back, and it's been fantastic to get the feedback from everybody. So thank you very much for listening, watching, getting involved. It's just an absolute dream.
It's a pleasure.
Before we get started tonight, we just want to thank a few people, a few sponsors, if you will. AccuFit, the Big Dogs Company, getting right behind the Modern Monks. Ghetto Movement is obviously a big supporter of our business. The big guy loves to watch our stuff. Definition, the guys downstairs always so supportive of our recordings, getting behind the podcast. South of Home Creative, the guys that film for us. Joey Plum behind the camera. And our favourite people to go fuel the body, Jimmy's Burgers, really keeping us nice and full in the tummy before our podcast, which keeps us creative. So thanks to those guys. Super cool thing to talk about early on this week. And it's a question that I've been asking a lot of people lately. It's a question that I've been asked once myself. What would you say to 21-year-old you?
I'd say keep doing what you're doing, but relax, baby. Just relax, chill out, go with the flow. I think when everyone's got that urgency, right? We've all got that time clock just ticking away. And we feel, especially when we're really young, that things are just going to happen for us. And they happen for us because we look at Instagram. It happens for us because we're always on social media and we're seeing all these people do phenomenal things. And we want that. We want that for ourselves, but we want it now. Because it's happening for someone now, it's got to be happening for us now. And I think for myself at 21, I didn't think my life would look like it does now. I honestly thought I'd be the most successful. I thought I would have changed the game by now.
Thought I'd have an empire.
Yeah. I honestly thought I'd be sitting like in this like ivory tower just being like, oh.
Isn't it funny how it changes?
Yeah.
Man.
And it evolves with you. So I think
21-year-old me was a punk.
Yeah, man.
Such a punk.
I definitely because I feel like it's still part of you though, that element.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That side of you.
Definitely.
But I definitely would look at him and just shake those broad, good-looking shoulders.
Those broad, unusually tan shoulders too, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, it's a different time, solarium days.
They're illegal now, yeah?
Yeah, I think they're illegal.
It's so funny.
They have to drag me out.
Got the goggle tan, like, hey, man.
What's going on, baby?
Fell asleep in the sun today, did
Yeah,
you?
it's AFP. But yeah, I tell myself just to relax, man, because even now I'm constantly checking in and going, 28. I was 28 on Sunday.
Happy birthday too, by the way.
Thank
I don't
you.
think I've seen you.
No, you didn't send me a card or anything like that.
I tried to FaceTime you twice.
Yeah.
Miss my calls.
Miss your calls. But I told myself then on my birthday, it was like something changed and something was different. But I think ultimately you have to relax, reflect, and just stay present in the moment, enjoy things, and be along for the ride, because fuck, who knows when it's going to end, man.
Mate, it's so true. And there's so many things happening around at the moment that really make you reflect on that. Like internationally, sure, there's always dramas happening, but locally there's been some horrific things happen. There was recently some fires ripped through down where I grew up, and It was devastating for the local community. There was 70 homes lost. A local guy, Jay Hayden, passed away recently. Young dude, full of life. You know, it can be snapped up at any time. It's crazy. It really makes you stop and think. Yeah. The reason I asked you that question is because I had a really interesting conversation with listener and viewer Scott Ford. And
shout out Scotty, love you, bro.
Shout out Scotty. And Scott, I asked Scott because he's a very smart businessman. He's given me a lot of insightful tips the last couple of months with moving space and everything coming up. And he's a very insightful guy, thinks about things on a completely different level. And do you know what he said? He said, I wouldn't waste my breath. I got here once, I can get here again. So I wouldn't waste my breath with that kid. Like, you know, he's going to be okay. He's done it. He might make some mistakes, but those mistakes have got me to where I am. And it just made me think, you know, everyone that gets asked that question gives you the old, oh, you know, I'd tell them to do this and believe in themselves and do all that, which is all well and good. Everyone probably needs a little bit of a pat on the back and go, you're doing a good job, mate. Like, you know, keep going. But so interesting. As soon as he said that, I just instantly was taken back to 21-year-old Will, and like coming out as 28 or 30-year-old Will being like, hey, listen, youngster, Like, this is what you should be doing. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
21-year-old Will would just turn around and just be like, yeah, cool, champ.
Yeah.
Cool. Good luck being 30. You're killing it. And it's like,
and then you'd be like trying to choke
the
him.
30-year-old me's like, God damn it, just listen to me. Like, don't make these mistakes. And it's like, it's the cycle.
Yeah.
No one ever, like, thinks that. I've never heard someone actually say, like, I wouldn't waste my breath. Look, I've gotten to here. I obviously had to do those things to get there.
Yeah.
And it's such, like...
But don't you think that only comes, and this is the same thing like when you're talking about this journey and we're talking about so many other things on this, like about mindfulness, all this stuff. It's like motivation last episode. It's all horseshit. It's all like ideals and ideologies, but it's so hard to be like when you're stressed out and someone's like, hey, calm down. Yeah. Calm down.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah, you need to relax more. It's like, are you serious? I'm freaking out. Stuff's gone wrong. My life's falling apart. I'm stressed out. Things aren't happening the way that I wanted to. And you tell me to relax. It's the last thing. Obviously, I know I need to relax. You know what I mean? And it's just like when you reach a certain point in your life and you start to see certain themes present consistently each year, which is, I need to be a better parent. Oh, sorry, well, parent if you got kids. I need to be a better partner.
I feel like you're projecting on me.
Good stuff's coming for you, right?
Yeah, I know.
Be a good dad. You know, go home early to your wife. Cook dinner. No. You just have to, like it's themes that come up in your life, like work harder, work smarter, be respectful to people around you, be kind. All these things are only learned through experience and time and fucking up and making failures, like a reality. You need to get life to check you for you then to go like what Scott has obviously done, who's gone through all the challenges of life, built himself into the person that he is, and he has that perspective. He's the most chilled out guy. He just hangs out.
So chilled out.
Sensational, right? And everyone else is stressing. I mean, we're stressing, but if we look back on the stress that's happened in the last, or what's going to happen in the last 6 to 12 months, and what's going to come for us, it's quite stressful. But when we look back on it in 5 years' time, we'll probably be like...
Yeah, we'll be like, God, remember that kid that was whinging about doing 18-hour days and all these stresses in life?
Yeah.
Now you've got 5 kids, mate. How do you think we...
Seriously?
Like,
have I got 5 kids?
No, I mean like when we do.
Oh, when we do.
Yeah, when we do.
Yeah.
Like between us, because obviously we'll stay tight, and then the girls would...
Yeah, separate, yeah. So in that sense, I completely agree with his perspective, and it's something that I've come to in this point when all this stuff's happening, like a lot of opportunities happening with the business, that I've actually less stressed than I was when I was just managing one facility, like one idea, because it was like I can't even control this stuff, all these uncontrollables we were talking about last episode. I can't control all these other outcomes. I can only control what I show up with, and I wish I had that mentality before. I wish I just turned up every day and was like, I'm just gonna fucking do the best I can, be a good person.
It's interesting though. Do you think if Eamon, in those days would have showed up and done that day in, day out, that he might have got bored of it? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I start to look at things now, and it's like, if you did change the way you behaved, the way you acted, or the way you handled situations in the past, would you still have the same principles, same morals and everything now?
No, I completely agree, but this is the same tangent of us saying you can't tell 21-year-old us because we wouldn't have listened. But in the same way, it's like I don't look at those mistakes that I made and the failures that I made as anything other than the journey. But I also think like whatever this is, whatever life is an expression of like us fucking up and having successes and having good relationships and bad relationships and good things happen to us and bad things happen to us.
Right, so what's a failure to you? Define to me what the word failure means, and then I want an example of something that has been a failure and something that you've had to rebuild from. Something that you've learned a really important message about because you've mucked up the first time around. So what's failure first? First, what does the word failure mean to you?
I use failure interchangeably with lesson. So okay. I don't frame anything necessarily as the positive or negative experience. Obviously, if something good happens, you win $1 million. I'm not going to be like, geez, this lesson's pretty good, and go back to meditating. I'm going to be like, woohoo! We're going Sizzler. We're going
Sizzler. You think Sizzler when you win $1 million?
Well, I'm thinking about buying Sizzler, maybe.
That's the first thing that comes to your mind. Yeah, baby, we made it. Break out the red panties. Nah, Eamon's going to Sizzler.
I live a very simple life, bro. Sizzler. Where are you going with $1 million? $1 million doesn't get you far anyway these
$1
days.
million doesn't get you far. $1 million isn't buying me your house.
It's a Saturday night, yeah. Seriously. Bowling.
But yeah, so
failure,
definition of failure. Definition of failure.
Failure, I think, interchangeably with lesson. And I think that when I look back at the failures that I've had in my life, I'd say being a terrible partner sometimes in certain relationships, that was a failure. Because I look at failure as that lesson in hardship. Mm-hmm. And that where you have to take stock at some point, look at yourself and be like, shit, not only am I fucked up, I'm going to have to pay for this for a while. So I look at that failure as a lesson. So sometimes when I've been a shit in my relationship, when I've been shit in my professional life, personal friendships, when I've taken people for granted, I've seen that come back in not the obvious karmic way, but looking back over time going, oh, I can see how this has been a hard transition.
Yeah, and it's not just like when you say pay for it too, it's not just financially that sometimes you have to pay for your mistakes, but emotionally, you know, these things can be quite taxing. If you go through something quite traumatic, you know, you often drag that along with you for quite a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and that can be the heaviest pay of all, you know, because just because you've moved forward and you're doing these things doesn't mean, you know, emotionally that you're clear of it. You know, you can still be carrying that baggage around, and it's not until something big happens you're like, oh shit, why am I crying while I'm watching The Notebook? And you realize that, you know, you've been holding on to this baggage for so long.
Yeah, just sobbing away
into the tissues.
What would you class a failure as then? Or something that's kind of perfect to you?
It's interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I don't know, I tend to look towards that lesson outlook as well, because realistically, if you fail something or you muck it up or you don't do it right the first time, like, it's cliche, but you've learnt a way that it's not going to work. I think the only failure that you can make is if you don't take that lesson away. So if you keep repeating the same mistake time and time again and you don't make a change, then okay, you're either brain dead or you've failed. Like, you know, there's something going on with the way you're thinking that's not pulling this apart the way it should be. So I think in that sense, you know, we're pretty on par with how we look at certain situations. Like, you know, if I make a mistake, I instantly learn, don't do that again. And if I do it, actually, perfect example, my between 21 and 25, horrendous run of injuries. No alarm bells rang for me until I was 25. It's the stupidest thing. I was like a moth to a flame. I kept flying in the flame, getting burned alive, and done. So I would drink heaps, think I could train, party, and, you know, just live the life. Ruptured pec, done. 6 months in a sling. Recovered, got back to full fitness, started doing the same things again. Thinking I can drink, thinking I can train, do all this stuff. No sleep. Dislocate shoulder once, dislocate shoulder twice, dislocate shoulder 3 times. Shoulder reconstruction. Same thing again. It's like everyone around me was just like, you are an idiot. I was like, nah, it's sweet, I've got it sorted. It wasn't until the last time it happened. I had the reconstruction and like, it was like, the penny just dropped. I was like, oh, this is right. Okay, I can't treat my body like this. I have to actually take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
So in a sense there, yeah, I failed time and time again. Failed myself miserably. Failed the people around me miserably. Because every time something like that happens, you drag those people down with you. You know, as positive as I am about everything, and like no injuries ever held me down, and I trained with a sling, when I did my foot, again, idiot. But I still train and I still stay positive. But there's always going to be an element of that guilt that you give yourself. And then that guilt that you give yourself will come off onto the people that are closest to you. They will feel that neg energy and it will affect them on some level.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, that to me is like a really good example of not listening to start with. So, excuse me. And then figuring it out, making peace with it, moving forward. You know, the lesson was learnt. Shoulders are better than ever, probably better than most people's good shoulders. But the lesson took a little while to learn, took a little while to sink in. I had to fail several times in order for it to happen. So it's interesting looking back and seeing, like, as soon as you start to unpack it, you see the similarities in what, like, you see other people doing. You're like, all right, fair enough.
But this is like the beautiful irony, I think, of a failed experience. Because through your failed experience, you built a movement company, right? You're on the brink of establishing something in an area, which I mean, I think I've only been down here a couple of years, but I think it's been crying out for it for a long time, right? People moving better and, you know, like an alternative to your Globo Gym setup, right? Something different, right? So something different. I look at my failures and being like, why am I making terrible mistakes? Why is this so hard for so long? Only get to a point where not only are things happening that I've always wanted, right? We've got a facility starting, we've got a lot of other locations and stuff coming up, a lot of opportunity.
4 weeks.
In 4 weeks, we'll be in a completely different space.
The movement mecca.
But if I look at that and go, all those failures beforehand, which were me making terrible choices, like I used to think of health and medicine as if I got too drunk on a night out, no problem. Because I know that I can take charcoal, my clays, I can do my herbs. I wake up the next day, hungover, footloose and fancy free, baby, to ready to go again. But I kept making that consistent problem, that consistent mistake of thinking that. And then I got sick in another way and I was like, that's another check. Like it was I kept thinking I could beat the system.
Yeah.
And I learned all that stuff. And you can't, like health, movement, all this stuff as life is a balance of all these different things. You can't take from something and expect everything to be okay. You can't do complete yang and have this like no yin element to your life, no sedentary element to your life, and not have that balance back and forth.
That's what people don't get to. Like, you can't be too far one way and too far the other, ever. You just can't do it because you need that balance. You need the bad guy within flirting, making the good guy flirt with a little bit of danger every now and then. Otherwise, you get all this yin, you know, everything's smooth, everything's chilled, everything's just sweet. And then all of a sudden it takes one little thing and poof, the yin cycle gets blown, you know, blows out. Whereas the other way, you self-destruct. So you do need those two things to intertwine.
Yeah. Because
otherwise, like, what have you got? You go too far one way, you explode. You go too far the other, you explode.
Yeah.
You need those things intertwining. You need to use the elements that, you know, are perceived as a little bit bad, a little bit rogue. You need to have that guy still stirring the pot every now and then because otherwise, you know, there's no balance there. And like you said, you need one for the other. Like every single human is like that.
Yeah.
They need it.
You can't you can't hide from it. It's like we're talking about sleep, you know, in a separate conversation, and we were talking about how you just need sleep as a fundamental. Your body will not heal, and you will, like, it's like, okay, you want to lose weight, you know, have a better sex life, have better energy throughout the day, all these different things. But you sleep 3 hours a day and your body needs 7 to 8.
The other thing that cracks me up too is that everyone is so quick to hear the amount of sleep from an expert or a perceived expert in that field. And they're like, oh no, it's fine if I only get 4.5 hours sleep a night. This guy said so. This paper said it. But then a couple of weeks ago, this amazing podcast with Joe Rogan. What was the guy's name? Sleep dude?
Matthew Walker Jr. No, I think it's Matthew Walker.
Matthew Walker, not Matthew Walker Jr. But he comes out and says, if you are not getting minimum 7 hours sleep a night, like basically dead.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, your body's not going to hack it. You can't do it for an extended period of time. Everything is just going to go downhill. All of a sudden, all these people, oh, you know, I've put in practice this, I've put in practice that. It's like, where do you get this information that tells you that 4.5 to 5 hours sleep a night is fine?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go full circle because one person credits it. And it's like, you know, not disclaiming Matthew Walker's piece.
He's just a guy,
like, what I'm disclaiming is the fact that people are so quick to believe whatever it is they hear or whatever it is they read without doing research themselves.
Right.
And, you know, that's another part of it. Like, everyone is so reliant on all these opinions, and nobody does the Tim Ferriss where they do a little bit of study on themselves. Like, okay, how do I operate when I have a week of 7 hour plus sleeps a night? How do I operate when I have a week of 5 hour plus sleeps a night? How do I operate when I eat this? How do I operate when I eat that? How do I operate when I go keto, when I go paleo?
But you're talking about like the society's biggest problem. Like the same thing we were talking about wanting to be a millionaire at 21. You want the magic, like no one, who wants to do, has anyone done chest to wall, handstand hold, 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Nobody wants to do that. Well, I don't want to do that. I just want to go jump up, a couple of this, a little bit of that, a couple one arm handstand, a little bit of that.
I get it.
No one wants to, it's the same thing. Like everyone comes for me for a treatment and they're like,
why can't you fix me today?
Yeah, if like, can I be that 1% 6% of the population that this medicine is just magic for, and they get pain free and they're just skipping out. No, you spent 20 plus years for some people. You spent 6 months sitting at a desk in a terrible job, never moving for 16 hours. Your body's not just going to be like, sweet. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for that. I'm sweet now.
Yeah, thanks for those 5 needles.
Yeah, or a massage, or like physical exercise. It's not going to work. Your body's not built like that. Our mental state's not built like that. It's accumulating good habits over a long period of time that will establish the goals that you want. So the same thing, like, I know what you're saying, but it's not.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're dead set. You're definitely right. Like that's a black hole that you could just dive down into.
Yeah.
But it's a black hole nonetheless, and we dip our toes in it every now and then, worrying about everyone else and what they're thinking.
Yeah.
What I want to get to next, while we're on the topic of failures, is fears. So I want to know what it is that scares you, what you're afraid of, any of these terms. I want 3 things.
3 things I'm afraid of?
3 things you're afraid of. 3 things that you fear, whether it's the future, whether it's now, whether it's something that you think may ever happen. Like, one for me would be, I'm scared of the dark. I'm not comfortable when the lights are out.
Are you really?
Yeah, I really am.
I did not know that.
I put on a brave face. I really do not like the dark. But that's a light-hearted one.
Yeah, okay.
I'll tell you what happened. When I was
scary.
a kid, I got up to go to the bathroom one night. My little brother hid under my bed. God knows how long he waited for. I stood out of my bed, and in my head, the boogeyman grabbed my leg.
Maybe he did.
Grabbed it hard.
Yeah.
And I screamed and bolted from one end of the house to the other. And I've never been the same since.
But did Barney say that was me?
No, Barney admitted it was him.
Yeah, but did he admit it because it was...
He came...
Or is he just
No, he came to he was like in stitches laughing. So he's come into mum and dad's room like, ha, I got you, bro. Petrified. Like I'd just been grabbed by a legitimate boogeyman sleeping under my bed.
Yeah.
So for years and years, even now still when my feet are like hanging out at the end of the bed and I'm conscious of it, I'm like, cover the toes up because that's where he'll get you.
Yeah. Oh, he will.
Yeah.
He will.
And I'm fully petrified of it now. Like, it's
terrible.
Shit, man. Traumatic experience.
Jesus.
But
I don't know
so that was a good example of a fear from the past. I want to know now. What's happening now in your world? What's going to happen that strikes a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt?
Okay. Fuck, that's a heavy question.
It is, isn't it?
When you think about, like, what are you most afraid of? So
I instantly think the dark.
Instantly think the dark. Fuck. So Sunday I turned 28. And you know how you have a birthday like you have a Christmas, right?
28 or 38?
Yeah, 28. With a
20.
2-8.
22.
Yeah, that's coming for you too.
28.
Isn't it 28 for you soon?
28.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
So,
I don't look
28. Hair's still there, bro. Just relax.
You're looking good, man.
So, 28 on Sunday. And for the first time, you know how you go through Christmas and you go through a birthday or whatever and you're like, it's the same. For the first time in my life, I woke up and I actually felt a little bit different. I was like, it was like I had like real problems now and I didn't have real problems before, but it was literally like 28. I was like, something's a little bit different, right? Something's changed slightly. I'm not sure what it is yet, but slight. And it was the first time in my life that I was even more conscious of time and the fact that there's really only a limited amount of time in this earth, on this time. And I don't know about past lives, I'm not questioning anything else outside of it, but right now, 28, I'm like, there's a finite time physically that we can be on this earth. And I think one of my biggest fears, and has been for a long time, is that I know within my personality that I'm quite good at certain things, and I stick a lot, not necessarily just to my comfort zone, but I flirt outside uncomfortable things that are still within my comfort zone.
Like doing a podcast.
Like doing a podcast. It's like it's hard, but it's also like I kind of want to do it anyway, right? And I think that my biggest fear has been for a long time is that when I get to the end of my life, and if I'm lucky enough to reflect on it before I go, at 100 and whatever, 20 years of age or whatever, and I'm sitting there and I can reflect on my life before the lights get turned out for good. I don't want myself to ask myself the question that I already know and I ask every day, which is asking myself, did I give up? Did I give up too soon?
Interesting.
Did I not do enough? And I know that everyone has outlandish and unrealistic expectations of what they want to do with their life. There's always that, regardless of whether you're sitting in a cubicle listening to this, or you're driving home from a job you don't like, or you are fortunate enough to, you know, have a business or you know, work in a place that you just fucking love. There's always something a little bit more that you want, that you get a tidbit taste from like Conor McGregor type person. Where you see someone who's so enigmatic that you're like, someone has achieved this. You know what I mean? Someone has millions and millions of dollars to achieve this greatness. And my biggest fear is that I'll get to the end point and know that I gave up on myself. Like workouts where you go, there's a little bit more, but that's it. I've done enough. And everyone's like, oh, you did really good.
Did you?
But did you?
So that's the question. You're asking like that.
Because I'll know.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like, no matter what anyone says and go, Will, you had a phenomenal life, you achieved so much, everyone loves you.
Well,
right?
There's probably some people.
There's probably some people. Let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest. It's one of them in this room.
One of them in this room, but we won't know. We won't know who it is. But you'll know like that fear, and I feel like everyone has that motivation, that push. I mean, that's what jealousy is. That's what competition is. Like the root of all these things. Like we compete against each other naturally, but it's because
some of us win more than others.
Some of us win more than others. Some of us. I don't want to talk about me right now, bro. But I think that question, I'm like, I'll know, and everyone will know. You'll know at the end if you have that opportunity.
It's huge. It's huge. And how many people listening right now would be happy to reflect on their life and know that they have given up on something, or B, that horrible question, what if?
Yeah.
Who asks themselves that, and how often? If you're asking yourself that a lot, you need to make some changes.
Yeah.
You know, what if this, or what if that? Poison.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, that's a big thing to be afraid of. Like, but it's good though. That's deep. Like,
it's hard. It's tough.
But
man.
it's an honest answer though. I like it because it's inner. You know, that's from the self. Like you are literally afraid of your own judgment on yourself. That's as raw as it gets. Like that's not, oh, I'm worried about, you know, Sally and Debbie thinking that I didn't try hard enough. You're legitimately self-reflecting so deeply that on your deathbed you are afraid of your own judgment and what you have left as a legacy.
Well, I think that everyone reflects on that. Like if you do a run, for example, like even if you break it down to the micro level, like let's say you wanted to run a marathon, it's a super big achievement, and you ran a crappy time, but halfway through that, or three quarters of the way through that, you stop yourself and you're like, oh man, I just got to stop. There's nothing left. So you start to physically see yourself slow down, and you get to the end and you were like, you know, you're spent and you're exhausted. But then after a while, after about a minute, you're walking around and you're like,
I wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Why? Like you look at the other bloke and he's like, you know, those like lolly legs, and he's like falling over the line. You're like, geez, that guy worked hard, and I finished and I had a little bit more to give. That scares the shit out of me, bro.
Ultimate, yeah.
That anytime I think of it, I'm like,
it's heavy.
I'm like that, and I know I'll come for me. That's the thing. I know I'm coming for me. I can.
And that's like at the end of the day, like I was like, shit. When I was thinking about doing this, I'm like, what am I afraid of? And there's not really anything. Like I don't doubt myself. I don't doubt what, you know, we're capable of, what I'm capable of. I know that whatever I want to do, if I set my mind to it, I will make it happen one way or another. I was like, fear of failure doesn't really faze me. You know, am I going to be a good dad? I'm going to be a killer dad. I can't wait. You know, I feel so naturally ready for that role. You know, am I going to be a good business owner? Who knows? But I'm sure if I put in the time and the work, I'm going to be good at it. So it doesn't really scare me in that sense of things. But that has just hit so perfectly. Like it's literally that self-reflection. Can you handle it? Can you not? It's dynamite.
Because I think you can translate that into today.
Yeah.
That's what the scary
every single thing you do.
You can't put it off.
Like everything.
That's not
everything.
Like,
training, work. Am I being an idiot whilst driving a car? Am I being an idiot while I talk to my mum on the phone? Am I doing everything I can in this situation to make it worth it, to make it legit? Mate, that's huge. That's the perfect way to end Ep 3. Just marinate on that, everyone at home. Self-reflection. Are you doing enough in your day-to-day?
That's enough for you.
That's enough for you. No one else's, just for you. Bruh.
I love it.
Episode 3, baby. Live it in the chamber. Catch y'all.
Catch you later.
Tell me.